The monitors beeped. The drip fell slowly. And Vanessa Monroe, billionaire, self-made mogul, owner of 3 companies and a real estate empire that stretched from Atlanta to Dubai, lay in a hospital bed, completely still, watching through barely open eyes as her husband of 7 years walked through the door. He did not rush to her side. He did not grab her hand. He stood at the foot of the bed, straightened his blazer, and said, "I need you to sign some papers." Vanessa did not move, not because she was too weak, but because she needed to see how far he would go. And what she was about to discover would destroy everything she thought she knew about love, loyalty, and the people she had sacrificed her entire life to protect. Stay right there, because this story is going to shake you to your core. If you're new here, subscribe. We drop stories like this every week. Hit that bell. You don't want to miss what happens next. Vanessa Monroe was not born rich. She was born in a 2-bedroom house in Birmingham, Alabama, the oldest of 5 children, to a mother who worked double shifts at a laundry and a father who left before her 7th birthday. By the time she was 12, she was helping her mother pay bills. By 16, she was tutoring neighborhood kids for cash. By 22, she had launched her first property management company with a loan she had scraped together from 3 different banks, all of whom had initially rejected her. She did not come from connections. She did not come from comfort. She came from sheer, relentless, bone-deep determination. 17 years later, Vanessa Monroe was worth $1.4 billion. She owned luxury apartment complexes across 7 states. She had a healthcare logistics firm with contracts in 14 countries. She had a private equity arm that had made more Black women millionaires than any program in the Southeast. Her face had graced the covers of Forbes, Black Enterprise, and Time magazine. And she had done all of it while also raising her 3 younger siblings after her mother passed, funding her brother Deshaun's law school, paying off her sister Keisha's mortgage, and sending her youngest sister Tamara to study fashion in Paris, twice. She had also married Bradley Collins, tall, charming, blue-eyed Bradley, at 41. He had swept into her life during a charity gala in Miami, full of warmth and wit and words that felt like poetry. He had told her she was extraordinary. He had told her he had never met a woman like her. He had made her feel, for the first time in decades, like she was more than her empire. They married after 14 months of dating. And from the first day of their marriage, Vanessa had felt something she could never quite name. A flicker, a hesitation, a gap between what Bradley said and what Bradley did. He never asked about her companies unless there was something he wanted. He never attended her business events unless there were cameras. He spent lavishly on himself, and when she gently raised it, he would deflect with a compliment that made her feel guilty for asking. But she had pushed the feeling down. She had told herself she was being paranoid, that she had worked so hard for so long that she didn't know how to simply be loved. And then, one evening in October, she overheard a phone call. She had walked into the kitchen for water. Bradley was on the back patio, voice low but not low enough. "She's not going anywhere," he said. "I just need a little more time. Once the asset transfer goes through, we're done. I promise you that." Vanessa stood at the kitchen counter for a long time after the call ended. Then she picked up her phone and called her attorney. What happened next, nobody saw coming. Vanessa did not confront Bradley. She did not file for divorce. She did not freeze his accounts or change the locks. Instead, she walked into her attorney's office the next morning and said 6 words that would change everything. "I want to disappear on paper." Her attorney, a sharp woman named Patricia Owens who had worked with Vanessa for 15 years, set down her coffee slowly. "Say that again." "I want to know exactly who I'm surrounded by," Vanessa said. "I want to know what my husband will do when there is nothing left to gain from me. I want to know what my family will do when I need them the way I once needed nothing." Patricia studied her. "You're talking about a full simulation." "I'm talking about the truth," Vanessa said. "And I want to see it with my own eyes." The plan took 6 weeks to construct. Every detail was precise, deliberate, and brutal in its design. First, Patricia quietly restructured Vanessa's assets, moving them into a blind trust and a series of holding companies that were untraceable to Vanessa's public name. On paper, it would appear that Vanessa had suffered catastrophic financial losses. The properties, gone. The investment portfolios, liquidated. The company's shares, allegedly sold off in a desperate attempt to cover debts that, in reality, did not exist. Second, Vanessa's personal physician, a trusted friend of 20 years, Dr. Stella Wellington, agreed to help with the medical component. It required careful staging, falsified lab reports, a private room at Atlanta General, and four that delivered nothing but saline, and a diagnosis that would be delivered to Bradley and to Vanessa's family with the gravity and clinical precision of a death sentence. Kidney failure. Stage 5. Rapidly progressing. Because Vanessa had a theory, and she needed to test every layer of it. You think he already has someone? Patricia had asked after staring at her for a few seconds. I think he's had someone for a while, Vanessa said quietly. And I think if he believes I'm dying and broke, he won't wait much longer to make it official. She paused, a part of her wondering if she was making the right move. Let's see if I'm right. She was admitted to Atlanta General on a Tuesday morning. Her family was called. Her husband was called. The diagnosis was delivered, and the countdown began. Her sister Keisha arrived first. She blew through the hospital room door in a cloud of perfume and designer bag straps, took one look at Vanessa in the bed, and burst into tears. For 30 seconds, Vanessa almost felt guilty. Then Keisha pulled up a chair, dabbed her eyes, and said, "Baby, I hate to even bring this up right now, but my mortgage renewal is coming up in February, and with your situation the way it is." Vanessa kept her eyes barely open. Her voice was thin, exhausted. "What are you saying, Keisha?" "I'm just saying, before everything gets complicated legally, maybe we could." "You want money," Vanessa whispered. Keisha straightened. "I want security. You've always provided that. I just don't know what happens now." "The doctors say my kidneys are failing," Vanessa said slowly. "I may need a transplant." Keisha went very still. "They tested me," Vanessa continued. "They tested the whole family. You came back as a match, Keisha." A silence stretched across the room like a wire pulled too tight. Keisha stood. She smoothed her dress. She did not look at Vanessa's face. "I would have to talk to my doctor. I don't know if I'm healthy enough. I have my own things going on, Nessa. You know how my anxiety has been. You just told me you're worried about your mortgage. That's different, is it?" Keisha left 20 minutes later, promising to look into it and to be in touch. She never mentioned the kidney again. Deshawn came 2 days later. Her brother, the attorney, the one she had funded through 3 years of law school, bar prep, and the first 2 years of his practice. He sat across from her, elbows on his knees, and for a moment, Vanessa thought she saw the brother she had raised in his eyes. Then he said, "What's this I'm hearing about you going broke? Is it true? Is everything gone?" Vanessa simply nodded. Deshawn shifted uncomfortably. "You mean there is nothing left? Not even an emergency fund?" "I've been talking to a financial advisor." About the estate." "My estate?" "Yes. It's just, if the worst happens, and I pray it doesn't, but I want to make sure whatever is left is handled properly. I'm your next of kin after Bradley, so I figured." "Deshawn," Vanessa said softly, "I need a kidney." He looked up. "You're a match," she said. "Dr. Wellington told me this morning." Deshawn let out a breath, so slow, it was almost theatrical. "Vanessa, I can't. I have a firm now. I have clients depending on me. If something went wrong during surgery." "Something is going wrong right now," she said. "I'm right here." He jumped up under the guise of receiving a phone call, and she never saw him again. She glared at the fruit basket and prayer card he dropped as tears streamed from her eyes. Tamara, the youngest, the one Vanessa had sent to Paris, twice, sent a voice note instead of coming in person. She said she was emotionally not in a place to handle hospitals. She said she loved Vanessa so much. She said she was manifesting healing for her. She did not offer her kidney. She did not offer her presence. She offered a prayer emoji at the end of the voice note. And then Bradley arrived. "Comment your city right now. Because wherever you are, I need you to witness this with me." Bradley Collins walked into that hospital room on a Thursday afternoon looking like a man who had somewhere better to be. His suit was pressed. His cologne announced him before the door even opened. He stood at the foot of her bed, not beside it, at the foot, and he looked at her the way you look at a car that's broken down on the highway, like an inconvenience. "The doctors called me," he said. "I know," Vanessa whispered. "I asked them to." He sat down, not beside her, in the chair across the room, and crossed his ankle over his knee. "How bad is it?" "Bad enough," she said. "They say I need a transplant." "Without it." She let the sentence trail off. Bradley nodded slowly. He picked at a thread on his blazer. "Bradley," she said, "you're a match." He looked up then. really looked at her. And in his eyes, she saw not fear, not grief, but calculation. They tested you, she continued. 2 days ago, when you came for the family meeting with Dr. Wellington, you were the closest match of everyone. A full 10 seconds passed. Vanessa, he said carefully, you know I love you. But kidney donation is a major surgery. There are risks. My own health. You're 41 years old and perfectly healthy, she said. Psychologically, I'm not sure I'm. Bradley. Her voice was barely above a breath. I am your wife. He said nothing. We stood in front of people we love, she said. We said words. In sickness and in health. He uncrossed his leg. He stood. And he said, and she would never forget this, I'll talk to my doctor. He was gone within the hour. He did not come back for 4 days. When he returned, he did not come alone. She heard the heels first, a sharp, deliberate click on the hospital linoleum. Then the door opened, and Bradley walked in with a woman beside him who was stunning, composed, and completely unbothered by the sight of a woman in a hospital bed. She held a leather portfolio under one arm and stood just close enough to Bradley to make the statement without saying a word. Vanessa, Bradley said. This is Simone. Vanessa did not react. She kept her breathing even, her hand still, because she knew exactly who Simone was. She had hired her. We need to talk, Bradley said. About the future. Vanessa said nothing. She waited. I've had time to think, he said. And I believe, given everything that's happening, it would be better for both of us if we started the process of divorce. Vanessa said. Separation. He said the softer word like it was a kindness. You're standing at my sickbed, Vanessa said, with another woman asking me for a divorce. Simone, God bless her, said nothing. She stood perfectly still, exactly as rehearsed, one hand resting lightly on Bradley's arm. I didn't want to drag this out, Bradley said. It's cleaner this way. Cleaner, Vanessa repeated. Patricia has already been notified about the asset situation, he added. The accounts, the properties, I know things have changed financially, but I still want to make sure the transition is handled fairly. And there it was. The whole thing in a sentence. He knew about the money. He knew it was gone. He had waited 4 days, not to come back and hold her hand, not to talk to doctors, not to pray over her body, but to make sure the money was really gone. And when he confirmed that it was, he had walked back in with Simone on his arm and divorce papers in the portfolio. Get out, Vanessa said. Bradley blinked. Vanessa, I said get out of my room. He left the papers on the chair. He and Simone walked out together. Simone glanced back once, and in that glance, invisible to Bradley, she gave Vanessa the smallest, most professional nod. Phase 2 was complete. If you think you know where this story is going, you don't. Like this video right now, because what comes next will have you restarting this from the beginning. For 3 days, Vanessa lay in that hospital room alone. Not truly sick, not truly broken, but performing the full weight of both, because the plan required her to see the bottom before she could rise. And in those 3 days, between the falsified charts and the saline drip and the beeping monitors, something real happened that she had not planned for. She cried. Not for Bradley. Not for Deshawn or Keisha or Tamara and their selfishness and their excuses and their spectacular failures to love her the way she had loved them. She cried because she had built everything, everything, from scratch. With her hands. With years she would never get back. With sleep she had sacrificed and meals she had skipped and relationships she had delayed. She had built an empire, and she had spent its dividends on people who, the moment the empire appeared to crumble, had folded like paper. Dr. Stella Wellington sat with her on the second night. You okay? Stella asked quietly. I don't know what I expected, Vanessa said. Her voice was raw. Real. I think I expected them to surprise me. People usually don't, Stella said. My husband stood at my bed with another woman, Vanessa said. A woman I paid. And the most painful part is that the only thing that surprised me about it was how unsurprised I was. Stella reached over and held her hand. You still want to go through with the reveal? She asked. Vanessa stared at the ceiling for a long moment. Call Patricia, she said. Tell her we're ready. Then her phone buzzed. A text from Deshawn. Hey, just checking in. Hope you're resting. Have you thought any more about the will? Vanessa put the phone face down on the bed. Yes, she said. We're ready. She had one more thing to arrange. She called Simone directly. A clean number, no trace. The family meeting, Vanessa said. Day after tomorrow. Bradley will be there. All three of my siblings. I need you to be in the room. Understood, Simone said professionally. Same role. Same role, Vanessa confirmed. Until I tell you otherwise. And when you tell me otherwise? Vanessa almost smiled for the first time in weeks. Then you become the punchline, she said. They all came. That was the first thing that struck her. How quickly they all came when Patricia sent the message saying Vanessa wanted a final meeting to discuss arrangements. The word arrangements did what nothing else had done. It made it feel final. And when things felt final, even vultures dressed themselves in mourning and showed up on time. Deshaun arrived in his best suit. Keisha wore black, not hospital black, event black, the kind you'd wear to a funeral where you expected to be photographed. Tamara flew in from wherever she had been healing and walked in smelling like a spa, eyes already watery in preemptive grief. Bradley came last, Simone on his arm, and the look on Keisha's face when she saw Simone was something between horror and fascination. Patricia stood at the front of the room, tablet in hand, expression unreadable. Vanessa was in the bed. She looked pale. She looked weak. She had been lying in this bed for almost 2 weeks, and the performance had been so clean, so precise, that even people who knew her well believed it. Thank you all for coming, Patricia began. Vanessa wanted you here because there are decisions to be made. About her care. About her affairs. Has she decided about the transplant? Deshaun asked quickly. Too quickly. She has, Patricia said. She's accepted that no family members are willing to donate. A heavy silence. Nobody met Vanessa's eyes. She's also made decisions about her estate. Patricia continued. Bradley leaned forward slightly. Just slightly. But Vanessa caught it. Given the financial restructuring of the past several months, Patricia said, the remaining assets are fewer than previously believed. How much fewer? Bradley said. Patricia looked at him over her tablet. Considerably. He leaned back. He took Simone's hand. And the gesture, so casual, so comfortable, so completely without shame, sent something cold and clarifying through Vanessa's chest. Before we go further, Patricia said, Vanessa would like to say something. Every head turned to the bed. Vanessa pushed herself upright. Slowly. Then she reached over and turned off the drip. She removed the monitor clip from her finger. She set it on the bedside table with a small, clean click. And the room went very, very quiet. What are you doing? Keisha said. Vanessa swung her legs over the side of the bed. She stood, fully, without shaking, without holding the railing, without the gasping effort of someone whose kidneys were failing. She stood the way she always stood, like a woman who owned the room. My name, she said, is Vanessa Monroe, and I am not dying. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The heart monitor that had been quietly beeping for 2 weeks had gone silent, and the silence it left behind was somehow louder. Tamara was the first to speak. What? I am not dying, Vanessa said again, more clearly this time. My kidneys are functioning perfectly. The lab results were fabricated. The diagnosis was staged. The financial collapse, the lost properties, the liquidated portfolios, the so-called debts, none of it is real. Every asset I own is intact, secured in a trust that not one of you will ever have access to. She let that land. She watched it land on each face differently. Tamara's confusion, Deshaun's dawning horror, Keisha's open-mouthed disbelief. And Bradley, who had gone the color of old ash. His jaw had gone tight. His hand had dropped Simone's. I need to explain why, Vanessa said. She folded her hands in front of her, and she spoke with the quiet, deliberate precision of a woman who had rehearsed this moment not in front of a mirror, but in front of 15 years of sleepless nights and unanswered prayers. I have spent my entire adult life building something from nothing. I have given from that something to every single person in this room, without being asked, without condition, without ever once holding it over your heads. She paused. And when I overheard my husband tell someone on the phone that he just needed a little more time, that once the asset transfer was done, he was gone, I needed to know the truth. Not suspicion, not theory, truth. She turned to Bradley. So I staged my death, she said simply. I staged my poverty. And I watched. Bradley opened his mouth, closed it. You came to my sick bed, she said, and her voice did not waver, with a woman on your arm. You stood at the foot of my bed, not beside it, at the foot, and asked me to sign divorce papers. You told me it was cleaner this way. You didn't ask about pain management. You didn't ask what the doctors said. The first question out of your mouth when you arrived was, how bad is it? Not because you were afraid of losing me, but because you were afraid of losing access to what I had. Vanessa, that is not. I was a match for a kidney transplant, she said. Fabricated results. But you didn't know that. You believed I would die without a donor. And you said you'd talk to your doctor. She tilted her head. You never called your doctor, Bradley. Patricia checked. He said nothing. You married me for what I had, she said. And the moment it appeared to be gone, you walked out and walked in with someone new. She turned then, and she looked directly at Simone. Which brings me to her, Vanessa said. Simone, to her immense credit, maintained her expression perfectly. Would you like to tell them? Vanessa said. Or shall I? Simone uncrossed her legs. She sat forward. She looked at Bradley with an expression that was no longer warm, no longer intimate, just professional. My name is Simone Davis. I'm a trained actress. I was hired by Ms. Monroe approximately 8 weeks ago to play the role of your new girlfriend. Every conversation we had, every dinner, every time I held your hand in public, it was a performance. Even the wealth I exuded was all an act. You were never my boyfriend. You were an assignment. The room didn't erupt. It imploded, inward, silent, devastating. Bradley stared at Simone for a full 5 seconds. Then he turned to Vanessa. You hired her, he said. I hired her, Vanessa confirmed. He stopped. Something passed through his face, something that might have been humiliation, might have been fury, might have been the precise moment a man realizes he has been outwitted by the woman he underestimated. You set me up. Bradley clenched his fists in frustration. He remembered how he had ditched Lydia because he believed Simone was wealthier and easier to manipulate. I gave you rope, Vanessa said quietly. You chose what to do with it. Now she turned to her family. Deshawn was staring at his hands. Keisha was gripping her bag strap like it was the only solid thing left in the world. Tamara had actual tears running down her face, though whether they were guilt or relief, Vanessa could not tell. Deshawn, she said, you sat in that chair and asked me about my will. You are an attorney. You know what it means to plan for the worst. But you asked me about my estate before you asked me how I was feeling. He didn't answer. You were a match, she said. You know that. Dr. Wellington told you. And you told me your clients needed you. Your clients, Deshawn. Over your sister's life. Vanessa, I paid your tuition, she said. Not as a loan. As a gift. Because I believed in you. Because Mama believed in you. I just needed you to believe in me for 5 minutes. And you couldn't do it. She looked at Keisha. You came here and asked me about your mortgage before you asked about my pain. Keisha pressed her lips together. And Tamara. She shook her head slowly. You sent a voice note. From wherever you were. With a prayer emoji. Tamara covered her mouth with both hands. I don't hate any of you, Vanessa said. And somehow, that was the most devastating thing she could have said. Because it was true. She didn't hate them. She was just done. But I am finished financing a version of love that only flows in one direction. Finished. She walked to the door and opened it. Patricia entered, followed by 2 of Vanessa's personal security team and a second attorney. Effective immediately, Patricia said, opening her tablet, Bradley Collins will be served with divorce papers. The prenuptial agreement, which he signed and which his own attorney reviewed, ensures he leaves this marriage with what he entered it with. Which is nothing. She paused. Additionally, the family trust that previously included Deshawn, Keisha, and Tamara Monroe as named beneficiaries has been restructured. Each has been removed. Keisha shot to her feet. You can't. She already did. Patricia said, without looking up. Vanessa. Deshawn stood. His voice broke in a way she had not heard since their mother's funeral. Vanessa, please. I made a mistake. I panicked. I know that's not an excuse, but... No, Vanessa said. It's not. I am your brother, he said. Yes, she said. You are. And that's why this hurts as much as it does. She looked at Bradley one final time. He was still sitting. He looked small somehow, like the room had grown around him. I genuinely hoped I was wrong about you, she said. Every morning I woke up in that bed. I hoped you'd walk in and prove me wrong. Hold my hand. Sit beside me. Be afraid of losing me, not it. She gestured vaguely at the air, at the money, the empire, the invisible empire he had tried to marry into. But you never did. And that tells me everything I needed to know. She picked up her coat from the chair beside the door. Patricia will handle everything from here, she said. I have a company to run. And Vanessa Monroe, billionaire, survivor, architect of her own revelation, walked out of that hospital room like the woman she had always been. Head high, spine straight, eyes dry. She had not faked that part. Not for a single second. And that, right there, is what happens when you underestimate a woman who built everything herself. Bradley walked out with nothing. The prenup held. The divorce was filed before the end of the week. Simone sent Vanessa a professional thank you note and went back to her theater career, richer by 6 figures and with one of the most remarkable acting credits of her life. Deshawn called for 3 weeks straight before Vanessa finally answered. That conversation, we may cover it in a follow-up episode. It was not short. Keisha sent flowers. Tamara sent a long letter from wherever she was, filled with real words that Vanessa read twice and then folded carefully away. Vanessa sold one of her properties, not because she needed to, but because she bought something new with the proceeds, a foundation, named after her mother, for young black girls in Birmingham who needed someone to believe in them before they believed in themselves. And on the day the foundation launched, she stood at the podium, looked out at a room full of little girls in their church shoes and their braids and their wide, searching eyes, and she said, "Never let anyone convince you that your value depends on what you give them. Your value was decided long before you gave anybody anything. It was decided the moment you were born." She paused. Remember that. So, if this story hit you somewhere deep, drop a comment right now and tell me your city. Tell me if you've ever loved someone who only showed up for what you had, not who you are. Tell me if you would have done what Vanessa did. And if you're new here, subscribe. Turn on your notifications. Because we tell stories here that nobody else is telling. Stories about strength, about betrayal, about what it really means to find out the truth. Like this video if Vanessa did the right thing. Leave a comment if the ending was on point. And share this with one person today who needs to hear it. We'll see you in the next one.